as you can see, I've lost my lovely boy Brandon. This came as a terrible shock to me just 3 days after I had to have Primrose put to sleep. Now, I had an absolutely miserable weekend without Primrose. The boys weren't cooperating, they didn't really want to come out for cuddles. Nothing unusual about that with the boys. I find often when you have rescue boys that weren't handled much when they were little, that they don't always want to be picked up and come out. They come out on their own. But Brandon, I could usually pick him up, but he just didn't want to be picked up, and he's a little bit snuffly on the Sunday, so I thought, okay, he's maybe not feeling well. I'm not going to force him to come out. But he was eating fine and he was getting about the cage okay, and I thought, okay, we'll see how he is tomorrow, and I think I'll just take him into the vet Monday, get him a checkup, see if he needs some antibiotics, because I think maybe he's just brewing some sort of respiratory problem, or he's had urine infections in the past. Maybe he's, brewing something, he's not feeling too good. So on the Monday morning, Primrose went off to the crematorium, and I've got my rat carrier ready. I've got several rat carriers, and I always have one ready for an emergency visit to the vet, which I'm extremely pleased I was all ready to go, because I thought I'm going to phone the vet for an afternoon appointment, a same day appointment. But when I got Brandon out, he didn't want to be picked up, but I said to him, you have to come out because we're going to have a look at you, because I don't know what's wrong with you. I always talk to them and tell them what I'm doing. And I got him out. As I got him out, I realised his paper underneath had quite a bit of blood on it, and it was damp where he'd been to the toilet. So I thought, oh, he's definitely got some urine infection or something. But anyway, this was like quite fresh blood, and I was like, there's something not right here. So I sat on the sofa with him. I turned him on his back, which he hates being turned on his back unless he chooses to sleep on his back in the hammock. But if I tried to turn him over, he doesn't want to be turned on his back. So I said to him, I've got to have a little look. So I had a little look, and he had this horrible raw patch underneath. It's probably about the size of maybe a 5p piece, and I have only once before seen something so horrific on a rat that made me feel sick, and that was when a rat bit another rat and it got infected. But this just was raw. It was horrible. He'd obviously tried to chew whatever it was. I didn't know if it was a tumour or if it was a cyst or what it was. I couldn't tell because he chewed the top of it. And it must have been so sore, but he was such a placid, gentle boy. He just, he just sat there and let me look, basically. And I turned him back the other way, phoned the vet and said, I've got an emergency. I told them what I'd found. They said, come straight down. We got in a taxi. We called a taxi. I said, it's an emergency. I've got to get to the vet. And we were there within 18 minutes. And we went in fairly soon after getting there. It wasn't actually bleeding at the time. It was just raw. It was just horrible. And I just felt he must be in so much pain here. And yet he's not showing it. And he's letting me stroke him and hold him. And being there so soon after losing Primrose, it was just a horrible experience. And I saw a different vet, which I'm very pleased, because she was more experienced with rodents, and she was very, very gentle with him, and she managed to examine him. He didn't really want her to look, but she managed to have a look, and she said to me, this is a mammary tumour, and she said, it's very recent, he's very fresh, so he's only just chewed it, probably in the last few hours. So don't feel bad, it's not like it's been like this for ages. And she said if he hadn't chewed it and it was just a lump there, it's quite close to his rear end. It was in a difficult place, but she said she could have, tried to remove it, but her big fear was that because he's already chewed it, he's going to pull the stitches out, you're going to be left with a gaping wound. And because he was a bit snuffly, she said his lungs are not that bad, but they're not that good either. And she suggested that the best solution would be, there's nothing we can put on it, he's just going to keep chewing it. It's rare for rats to try and remove tumours or chew at them themselves. It's rare for males to get mammary tumours. and where he's quite big underneath, this is why I hadn't seen it before or felt it when I picked him up, because he had some little rolls of fat, I'm afraid, round his middle. He'd got quite big in the last few weeks. So she said that really the best thing for Brandon was to have him put to sleep. And, you know, I said, yes, okay. Because I had just felt we were just going to prolong his agony. He's either going to keep chewing it or... Sorry, my lights, one of my lights has just, batteries just run out on my daylight bulbs. It's just gone a bit darker there. So yeah, we had him put to sleep, and I came home and I was in total shock, and I spent the next week just couldn't believe that I had lost him, because it's just too much. It's happened to me before where I've lost rats very close together, and what happened is the same thing as before, is I got physically sick, a sore throat. I'd made my throat sore from crying all weekend. My sinuses were blocked, swollen glands. Still got a sore throat now a couple of weeks later. So, you know, that was it. I just down to one boy, and Rob's not in the best of health. So I don't know how long I'll have him. I need to go and get a check-up at the vet for him. I've previously tried to introduce him to other rats and it hasn't worked. I tried to get him in with Barney. He's such a nervous rat. If he was in good health, we would definitely go and find him a friend, but I'm going to get him a check-up at the vet. But I have got a feeling now that Brandon has gone, that Rob won't be with me much longer either. He does come out spending quite a bit of time on the sofa with me. He's obviously missing Brandon, but he doesn't seem to be distressed or in stress at all, and he's eating well. But my Brandon's gone, and I just feel every morning I look for those little faces and they're not there. It's just so sad. He was such a beautiful, gentle boy. So another one gone too soon.